Look, we young and we fly, don't act so surprised. We on the move and we working. We stay on the grind, Milwaukee gon' shine. When we gon' move with a purpose. 414, you already know, on the way to the top and it ain't no stopping. We got the keys, we got the tea, reporting to you live with all the hot topics. 414, ay, be the wolf pack, 25-8, we gonna get to the bag. We some youngers on a mission, and this is just the beginning. We on a whole other level, and you know that we winning.
Hey y'all, we bike. It's Monday, May 3rd. First Monday, first pod for us.
Shout out to the shout out to our guest who's not here, the birthday boy, Dorian.
Happy birthday to
21st birthday boy.
Happy
Woo!
birthday.
We celebrate. Yeah,
We got some drink.
We got some drink for you. We celebrate you with spirit.
I don't
Go
drink.
ahead, my bad.
So today, as y'all can see, as we mentioned Dorian, we brought somebody else in. We have our first special guest here on the Wolf Pack, Miss Simmone Kilgore, also my mom,
aka moms,
aka everybody's moms. So we got a very important topic for y'all today. Getting a little more serious and informational for y'all. April was Sexual Assault Awareness Month, and that's a big month. I feel like in our community all over the world, but specifically the Black community specifically can be highlighted here in Milwaukee. And we want to just get into that, give people some information and some resources they can use that can help our community. So Simmone is a trauma therapist and an advocate for Aurora Healthcare. She's a community trauma therapist for the Office of Violence Prevention, and she's the owner and operator of Beauty Master Salon and Spa here in Milwaukee. So let's give her a round of applause for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
So how y'all doing today?
I'm doing good. How y'all doing?
I'm doing well. It's Monday. Y'all know how I come every Monday.
Yeah. I'm excited to be
This
here.
can be late, but ready.
I'm excited to be here. I'm excited that we're sharing something that's important to all of us in our community. That's really my main point of being here today, is just making sure that we help somebody. If it's just one person, we did our job today. So that's all I'm worried about.
That's a fact. How was y'all's weekend? We finally got some good weather. And I feel like my mood from the weekend has kind of cleared up.
I feel like if you was outside yesterday, it just felt good. Like just having that, you ain't gotta wear a coat. We ain't gotta worry about the cold, the winter.
Outside.
Be outside. It just felt good. Me and my boyfriend, we went bike riding, and it was just amazing. The breeze. Shut up, Jill. The breeze was just amazing. The weather was just perfect. Like you was catching the breeze. You know, it wasn't too hot. It wasn't too cold. So it just felt nice to be outside for once.
Yeah, it's a change. I think, with the pandemic and everything everybody's been going through, that weather, in particular, the warmth and the breeze made you feel almost tropical. Like if you haven't had the opportunity to get out of here or travel or be somewhere warm and climatey and moody with some flip-flops on and your music, then that yesterday and Saturday was that day. So I think it boosted everybody's mood, or like I always say, serotonin levels went up. It's like chicken on a plate, right? For me.
Definitely. I tried to just take that energy into the week. So I had a better Monday than I've had the last couple Mondays.
Yeah.
So let's get right into it. What is sexual assault?
Wow. Okay.
That's a broad question.
Straight to
but,
the point.
Straight
to the point.
Wow.
It's a broad question, but
right.
A lot of people feel like there's a gray area in sexual assault, and we want to make it clear that it's not. No,
it's not. It's not. So for me, like you mentioned during the introduction, I am a therapist with Aurora Healing and Advocacy Services, where we provide services for survivors of sexual assault and domestic violence throughout Milwaukee County. And our program is pretty comprehensive in the fact that we provide medical treatment, forensic care for survivors of sexual assault right after an assault, which means they can come in and receive medical attention from kits or evidence collection, or making sure that their bodies are okay, or if they need evidence to press charges in the moment, or they have up until 9.5 years after the incident, after the evidence is collected, to hold their evidence kit in state lab, in the Wisconsin State Lab in Madison. And so for 9.5 years, your evidence can be in what we call a rape kit until the person decides that they want to move forward with pressing charges, which gives a survivor an opportunity to process what just happened to me. What do I want to do with that? If I want to press charges now or later, I have 9.5 years to make that decision, right? So not only do we provide, forensic nurses who are specialized nurses in collection of evidence and working with survivors, we also have counseling, which is what I do, therapy, long-term individual and group therapy for survivors. And we have advocates on board that provide services for those who need help with housing. Because we think a lot of times, when to answer your question, Julian, about what is sexual assault, I'm going to get to that. But sometimes we think sexual assault is one incident. People get up from it, leave from it, run from it, and it is over. And that is never the case. Sexual assault affects people. 1 in 3 women in the world will be able to say, I am a survivor of sexual assault. And about 1 in 4, 1 in 5 men. Now, that does not mean that 1 in 3 women or 1 in 5 men talk about it, report it, admit it to themselves. It is just something that is so very common. It is more common than divorce, but it is less talked about. It is more common than high school dropout rates, but we talk about that with no problem. We don't talk about sexual assault, and oftentimes in communities of color we don't, because they're taboo subjects. So there's different ethnic and nationalities that deal with it very differently. For instance, there's examples of, and not all, but Native Americans tend to deal with it internally within their tribes or their areas. And they might have ceremonies or dances or rituals that help to heal those that are affected. They may not report to local police. That's their right and their business. If I'm a survivor, I don't have to report. I don't have to seek help. But if I do, all of these things that I'll share with you today are available, as well as some resources that I share with you all. So to close down the broadness of sexual assault is improper touch from an unwanted person or someone you love. Sometimes married couples go through this, and because you're married to me, I can do whatever. That is not true. It is not the case. And it can be reported as such. And we support survivors of all kinds. Sexual assault, to answer your question, is rape. It is molestation. It is improper touch. It is innuendo. Sexual harassment is a problem. It's sexually violent. To be at work and to be harassed in the Harvey Weinstein type things that we've heard in the media recently, which has brought a lot of attention to sexual assault and what people are now saying, the Me Too movement. And so you got a lot of people, male and female, saying, what is up with Me Too? Well, Me Too been around a long time. Started by a black woman, I might add. Kind of taken over by other folks at times. But to be real honest, a sister started that, right? And we started many things that folks try to pull away from and identify with in a different way, but it's not anything new to be one of the Me Too. Women, people, males, youth, elderly, for years have been saying Me Too. We just haven't had a hashtag, and we haven't had Instagram and Facebook, but there's been Me Too for hundreds of centuries. Our ancestors
were saying Me Too.
Was saying Me Too. On the boats.
On the way here, slavery.
Our brothers were saying Me Too. On the boats. So, not to go deeper than that, because y'all know, Monty and Julian know I'll go off the cliff. I want to stay focused on understanding that sexual assault is sexually violent. And it harms people. And so, what I know as a trauma therapist, what that really identifies me as is somebody who specializes in traumatic events and understands what it does to the body. So we call it the neurobiology of trauma, how it travels through the body and how it affects the brain, how it affects your circulatory system, your blood flow, how you sleep, how you breathe, how you look in the mirror and what you see back, what your focus is, how you show up in relationships. how you show up for friends, how you give, how you don't give, how you share, how you don't share. All of these things matter because trauma affects you in a way that can paralyze you at times or cause you to feel like you're all alone. And so the first message I must say to anybody that's listening is you are not alone. You are never alone, and hope is always available. And we will have resources available at the end of this podcast or throughout to share with you all. We also, of course, have the chat line open. I don't know what y'all call it because y'all so smooth with it, but please send comments or questions or any concerns you may have. And to be real transparent, I am not perfect or a perfectionist. And so if I have any information wrong and you want to challenge that or you would like me to look it up and find it, I will do that as well.
And Mom, I appreciate you for coming on the show and, being vulnerable because you have seen a lot of stuff in your line of work. Yes. And what you said about the Me Too movement and social media, I just want to ask, how long have you been doing this, and how have you seen the transition, the change of the narrative? Because I feel like it's not accepted all the way, but we're moving forward and making them strives to make that this is more not taboo, but we're talking about this. We're letting them uncomfortable conversations happen.
Absolutely.
So I want to know your intake on that.
That's a good question. So I've been doing this probably since I was an intern and extern students when I started. So maybe 2012. Okay. Since 2012. Okay. Yeah. Hired on full time at Advocate Aurora Healthcare under, it used to be called SATC, Sexual Assault Treatment Center. So if you Google sexual assault services throughout Milwaukee, we generally come up first because we have a fuller comprehensive program. Freighter definitely has a program now where there are forensic nurses available there as well. But we also go to our West Alice campus and to Sojourner Family Peace Service, where my office is actually located throughout, so I can help people in a centralized area in the community. But so I've been doing it that long, but to answer the part about the language changing, especially in recent years with Me Too, Harvey Weinstein, who's the other guy who went to prison and they say he died. I forget. I got it. It'll come for me.
It'll come back.
But it's a lot with, we still are very swayed by celebrity in politics and Hollywood. And so if the celebrities are behind it, we behind it.
Right.
If they're talking about it, we're talking about it. I don't care if it's the latest jeans or crime. If they get behind it, we do. And so to have a lot of actors and actresses kind of get behind this thing and kind of talk about how it plays out in politics for people, senators, people getting caught up. Right. It plays a huge part, if the country can get behind it. So I think the language lately in late years has been really supportive of survivors, which is good.
That is really good.
It's caused people to call us. It has caused our phones to ring nonstop.
So you've been getting more positive reinforcement from
the outside world, yes, as opposed to people saying, why did that person wear that? Where were they at? Why did they do that? Which kind of brings up, what I talked a little bit about with Denim Day and the importance of Denim Day and why it's so amazing that we still celebrate it today the way we do, But at the same time, we have a lot of new language and chatter about sexual assault, which is helpful because it causes people to, wherever they are and wherever they hear it, they can say, wow, I think I'm a survivor. I think I can call now because now is like the time. Although we've always been available and believe it's always been time.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Speaking of, I think it's the perfect time to shout out a few folks and thinking about Denim Days. It was April 28th.
Yes.
And shout out to Anika Leonard, who does Denim Diamonds and Pearls,
Absolutely.
her event every year around sexual assault awareness. And just she's a major advocate for those who've been impacted and does amazing work. And has done amazing work in Milwaukee, as well as Samantha Collier does Team Teal.
Yeah, 365.
Yes,
yeah.
And does great work as well as an advocate here in Milwaukee. So, and a bunch of others, like charged to my head and not my heart, who do amazing work around sexual assault as well. Shout out to them.
Yeah.
And sexual assault awareness is observed in April, but like we said before, since we wanted to start May off on the right foot, we didn't want to leave that behind.
Yeah.
You know, we wanted to make sure that we got some viewers, unfortunately, who have been victims of that. We want to make sure that we know that y'all are important and that we care about y'all. So this episode is dedicated to y'all. We're going to give y'all some resources, and we might have you come back on the show. I'm always open.
Anytime.
This is an ongoing conversation. It just don't end, like you said, at the first day. So
No.
Yeah.
So we talk about April being important and Denim Day, but I mean,
It's
for
year
survivors, it's every day.
Right.
So who cuts off somebody's time? Not us, right?
Right, we won't.
So it's always time to talk about how we can heal.
Right.
'Cause that's what we do. And I do want to say thank you to Wolfpack for inviting me to the scene, because it's, when you guys asked, I was like, absolutely. Anytime I can talk about people having hope, we're not meant to suffer.
Absolutely.
Period. That's my statement.
Can we get into real quick about how to be supporters?
Yeah.
And how to be understanding of people that are survivors.
Sure.
And or I guess, is there a difference between somebody being a survivor or that time or experience being more recent to where that surviving hasn't taken place, or are you a survivor right away?
It is my firm belief. It is my firm belief, and I believe this is a definition, but I don't know it.
I probably asked like 3 questions.
You did. I kind of got it. Just because you're my child, I kind of got in there.
She read the lines.
Yeah, I believe that we all survive in something. And so I think that's my philosophy. It's important to understand that there's nobody on the planet that is not surviving something. And so we are survivors while the assault is happening. You're a survivor the second that it ends, or the second that it finally comes to completion. Because for some people, when we talk about sexual assault and or rape and or molestation and or abusive language, power and control, we think that sometimes it's a single incident, and it can be a traumatic single incident. It's called simple trauma.
Okay.
If it's a one-time event, a car accident can be simple trauma. The complexity, though, is that even if it's a simple single incident of sexual assault, there's complexity within the one incident. Complexities could be, it was my dad, my uncle, my mom, my aunt, my cousin, my friends, my neighbor, my teacher, my coach. Complexity in the fact that I love this person and hate what they did to me.
Right.
In the complexity that I could have been a child. I could have been married and I didn't tell my partner because I couldn't. Or I couldn't grieve because I have children to raise and I couldn't figure out a space for that. So there's complexity in any trauma that you experience. But for a lot of survivors that have been affected by sexual abuse for long times, their childhood, human trafficked, which I work with a lot of survivors that have been trafficked. One lady in particular told me and this is how she described it, I was in the game 26 years. Never by choice. It started young for her, 11, 12, 13. And by the time I realized I didn't have to be in it, I had a choice to utilize my body in a way that I wanted to do what I wanted to do with my body.
Right.
To say no to multiple people utilizing my body at one time. It was 26 years later.
And even that, 26 years later for this woman was still in a process in itself. She didn't just make that decision and start this new way of living life, right?
No, it's a gradual awakening. It's a gradual appreciation for the fact that I'm still here. And there's something that's got to click in the mind that you say, I don't have to live like this. You know, as your mom, I say to Julian every day, you can have whatever you want. And that is just what I believe about everything for everybody. Now, I can have whatever I want. Do I want to work for whatever I want?
Right. That's the question.
But the counseling concept is the same. When I say to people, lots of brown and black people who, I ain't doing counseling. I pray, I meditate, I work out, I yoga, I drink, I use drugs, I got a partner who loves and adores me. I have my kids. I give to the community. We do everything but counseling. And those of us that have decided to do counseling, and it's scary for anybody, but I think we are the most courageous beings on the planet. I think we're created to be courageous, created to be courageous, created to take the risk, created to try to live better than I did yesterday.
Right.
And that may mean a new toothbrush or counseling or getting on the treadmill for the 500th time, because I had done that. I done started and stopped 900 times. Don't matter.
Right.
What matters is that you try and you go. And so when we get calls from people that are deciding to engage in therapy for the first time, that is the most courageous call you can make.
That's the first step.
That's the biggest step. And then the second one is coming to the place. The third one is returning again. Doesn't mean you're going to love counseling. Doesn't mean you're going to love your counselor. I was with a girlfriend last week. We did a podcast together on healing. And she said her therapist said that healing and choosing therapy is like dating. You go on a date, you don't like it, choose a new date.
But don't stop.
Don't stop dating. Now, you know Mama told me that. Don't stop dating. Go ahead and date.
So we got Samantha in the comments, and as you're going, she is giving us some tidbits saying that victims and survivors are thrivers.
Yes. Yes.
That, what you're talking about now is starting the healing process. So
yes,
you have to start that process and then continue to be consistent.
That is SAAM. Team Teal 365, phenomenal organization. You are mentioned in the resource list, my sister, because she does great work in the community, along with Price's Insight and Anika Leonard and so many other people in the community that do this work. So yes, we know that people are victims, and so we use the word victim a lot, especially in like proposals or government funding, grant documents, stuff like that. But we know in our hearts that people are survivors. And so we want them to move to a place of being thrivers. So they are beyond surviving. They are thriving. They are sharing their message in some way. They are helping to heal others, even if it is come go with me, or here's a number, or I'm thriving because I'm a mother with new, fresh insight, a partner, a dad, a grandpa who now can see the value in being okay with saying no. Right. I worked with a grandpa not too long ago, and he just came alive at like 65. And he said he never realized I could have this kind of lifestyle, love and appreciation and happiness and joy and peace. That's and not beautiful. Feel like nothing.
That's beautiful.
Trauma has a way of affecting you where you feel like it's your fault.
And it's never your fault.
It's never your fault, and you are never alone. Never. That's what we need to push. It's never your fault, and you're never alone.
Is it the victim blaming that kind of shames?
It's the victim blaming, victim
from
shaming. We do a lot of that. We see a lot in the media for sure, but we do a lot of it because it is. What did they wear? Why were they there that late? What were they drinking? They shouldn't have been with them. They barely knew them. You got that. You got the other pieces of why didn't they tell?
Or why they waited so long?
Why were you in that relationship so long? That person's a jerk. And it's just like, come on. Yeah. How's that helping anybody?
That's missing the root of the issue.
It's not the issue.
Whether they were drunk or she drunk too much, she still was taken advantage of.
Or he.
It's not just a woman, it's men
not
too.
At all.
Right.
So whether we are partners, friends, brothers and sisters, husbands, like whatever, how do we show support in the healing process? Because that's like you said, it's you're dealing with trauma, you're dealing with somebody that may need space, you're dealing with somebody that may need loving on,
or more understanding, or grace
that you might not have. You know what I mean? So like not being somebody that hasn't experienced sexual assault. How do you provide support to those people that you love?
So one of the things you mentioned when you asked the question, you said they could need space provided without
guilt,
and without the tax. So I always say to people, I'm gonna be honest. Sometimes I tax in my relationships. Julian, you're my son, and I expect you to come over and help me move to my next place. That's like a tax, right? You know, you can put a little heavy on it, but at the same time, when you tax people who say to you, I'm not at the space, you know, my capacity to do so is not that. One of the things, sometimes we don't know they're a survivor. Not everybody walks around and shares that or shares it with their loved ones. And they have a right to that, right? So whenever someone does say, I'm kind of dealing with something, I'm not sure how I'm processing it or what I want, the best thing you can do is say, how can I be available to you? Literally. And if you ask it, I hope you're ready. Don't ask me what I want. Not no more at 47. At 25, I'd have said, I got it. I don't need it. I got it. At 35, I probably was too busy to even answer the question. At 47, I understand that anybody who says, how would you like me to help you? I have a way of saying what it is I need in the moment. And it might not be on that specific project, but it might be, I've been kind of having some fuzzy things going on in my brain lately, or some angst or some worry. Keep me in your mind. Check in with me on Tuesday, something like that. Or I'm looking for therapists. Or I recently decided that I'm going to share that I'm a survivor and I'm really nervous. You can say to that person, how often would you like me to check in? Like, don't bombard them. Don't ask questions. Who did, what time, what day, what took place. That ain't nobody's business. Counselors we don't really do that. It's not a requirement that we know all the details. What we understand about it
is not supporting.
No.
So asking questions, that might not be, that might make it worse.
Probably.
Okay.
It probably will, but not always, but probably. So the idea is to be available, meaning when the person wants to share, I don't have to come up with a scenario for them. I don't have to come up with a solution. So as a friend who loves people, sometimes you want to come up with a solution, but I don't have to do that. Sometimes just your presence, being with them, not mistreating them, not judging them based on what they shared, not saying, well, why didn't you just tell? Why didn't you call the police? What about your parents? None of that is irrelevant. You have a person who opened up their heart and shared something extremely intimate with you. Maybe you're the first person they told, or the 50th. I don't know.
Right.
The point is, it's very, very, very touchy. And how you proceed after you know the information is always their fear. I don't want to be seen as a victim. I don't want to be seen as weak. I don't want to be seen as a survivor. Some people are not ready. Some people walk around like, I'm a survivor. This is what I do, and I'm proud of it. And you support them by saying, I'm proud of you too.
So you also can't take one survivor and compare that to
everyone
is cutting up today, Julian. That's what you can't do.
Okay.
You cannot. So it's like we all know we have ancestors that came over here from somewhere. Okay. That doesn't mean Imani's ancestors' experience was like my ancestors' experience. We just know they probably were shipped over here from somewhere. That's about the most that we know, right? But at the same time, every survivor has their own individual and unique experience that is just theirs. And they have a right to navigate that experience on their own by themselves. I always say, you the driver. And as a therapist, I get to be the passenger.
Right.
Where do you want me to sit? Do I sit right next to you? Do I sit in the back seat? You got me in the trunk? Where do you have me? And so that's important, that we support survivors in a way that they need us to. Some people might need lunch every now and then, and a kiss on the cheek, or a touch from you. Or some people may need a phone call.
So it's important to ask.
It's important to ask.
Okay.
So tell me what you need.
Around that conversation around healing, and I know healing is an ongoing process, like lifelong process. But how do you know that you've healed from something as heavy as sexual assault? Is there a moment where you know, right? I'm not I've arrived, but how do you know okay, I'm finally at peace with this situation?
Is it different for everyone?
It's so different for everybody. And you made me think about several people who I've worked with over the years who have said, specifically, I never knew I could feel like this about it. Mm-hmm. Now, the other thing that we know about trauma,
being on the other side
of the pain, and not away from it,
not away,
not dismissed,
right?
But where I feel like I can breathe, and I feel like so let's go back a little bit. We know that many of the emotions associated with sexual assault have everything to do with shame, guilt. Anger, regret, sadness, regret, doubt, self-doubt, self-pity, anger, sadness, depression, numbness, an inability to focus and concentrate. So let's think about kids in school who, when the bell rings sometimes at 3:30 to go home, that's when the fights break out because I need a detention. I need after school. I need to be here for a while because going home is not safe for a lot of children. And I've worked with a lot of children who school is safer. Let me just say, and I get off of that because I can't hardly deal with the topic. But we know that coming through it, people say, listen, this is the trick to it. If I never went through this, I would not know my own resilience. I would not know my strength. I would not know how much work I can actually put into healing, and that the other side of it is this type of victory, this type of relief and belief that I am somebody, and I don't carry the shame associated with what somebody else did to me, and I don't carry the guilt. And I don't have the burden. So I told somebody the other day, it's like a backpack full of weights that don't belong to you. And it's like, you give me your weight to carry. And I never asked for it. It's not my fault.
Right.
I know I'm not alone. But that weight in that book bag feels like I'm alone. My back hurt, my stomach, my head. I can't sleep at night. I can't turn. The weight's on me. Right. I can't go nowhere without everybody knowing because you think everybody knows. It's a feeling of shame that is non-compared to anything else. It's horrible. And so what survivors do once they start healing, and they kind of chipping away at the shame and chipping away at the guilt. And so the book bag gets lighter because we taking the weights out. And you placing them where they go. Throw them at the head of the person. They don't belong to me. So I don't want to carry somebody else's weight on my back, so I put it somewhere else. And so that kind of relief is the arrival. Not that the arrival is a point where we stop. There's no stop. There's no stop in healing for me. As a survivor of somebody who lost their mother, I ain't stop. I'm not going to stop healing from that.
Right.
I don't want to get to a place where I don't keep building on top of my healing and my happiness and my joy and my peace. The complexity, though, of life and the dichotomy is that back in here, you know that it happened to you and it was not your fault, but it took so much from you. It takes so much from you. So your work is to build. Sometimes what you had before the assault ever happened, but for many, many, many survivors, they never had stable foundation, strength, hope, joy, love, safety. Let me say safety again. Safety. So sometimes we're asking people to return to safety and they never came from it. So you have to understand how it's very different for each individual. Nobody's story is alike.
Right.
Nobody's story is alike.
I really appreciate that response, and I asked it in particular because it was something that I reflected on for myself. And for me, I love this episode. It's personal to me, and this weekend I led a print party for my business. Love Yourself is one of like my biggest movements, and I was sharing with them that I haven't gotten it all figured out. I'm not like this self-love guru that like wake up and be like, I love you to myself every day. Like I'm on the journey with them, and so they kind of like paused the event to share their appreciation for me, to tell me that they loved how vulnerable I am within my business, because they felt like a lot of like business owners and people who spread messages aren't vulnerable and open about their experiences and what they go through. And that that moment of vulnerability touched a lot of people at the party that day, which was this past weekend. And that is what's inspired me to be vulnerable in this episode today. And I think I'm just learning so much listening to it, because not until I'm hearing what I'm hearing on this episode right now that I just had a reflection moment. Like, I don't really, I never really thought about myself as a survivor, or thought about like what that process was like for me. So unfortunately, I experienced sexual assault as a kid when I was younger, and it's something that I've always had at the forefront of my mind. Like, I've always acknowledged it, because like my mom had me in therapy when I was younger after it happened or whatever. But it was something that impacted my life drastically. Like, I repeated a grade, like all these things I don't talk about all the time, but when I'm in spaces where I know it can help somebody else, like I'm willing to talk about it. And like,
I commend you on
that piece about like, that made me who I am today, like the strength that I have, the resiliency that I have because of what I went through. And it really like shed light. I was so young, but my mindset right away was like, oh, like hurt people. Like at a young age, I knew that in my head. I was in therapy and I was like the strong. My older sisters, she processes things so different. She gets angry when she heard about what happened to me. She was angry. She was like devastated. But for me, I'm like, okay, like hurt people. So what help does this person need? Like everybody involved. Like I felt bad for putting the information out there. I thought I was breaking my family down. Like it was so many things. And all those characteristics still exist in me as an adult. But I just wanted to share that piece of my own story. And for those who are listening, I really hope y'all are able to take something from this episode for sure. Because I'm sitting here participating and learning at the same time.
I love it. Thanks, babe.
For sure.
I don't call you babe, I call you mine. I call her Imani Pooh, but I'm not going to do it on record. Imani. So I appreciate you being transparent. Sure. It's very difficult for anybody to be transparent at any moment. Right. So 56, 46, 20, it doesn't matter, darling. Thank you for that, because it's hard. And let me tell you, you touched somebody just now. Yeah. That's how it works. That's why I do it. Everybody says, how do you do this work? And I say, every time I try to get away from it,
it pulls you right back.
I cannot. I believe that there's hope in healing, and that there's hope in every area of life. And if I didn't believe it with my whole fiber, I would be out of here, like not doing this every day. Right. It is horrific at times, but then there's times, and I get tired at times, like. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but like, how do you balance hearing what you hear on a daily basis? And
like, because it's like a balance. You gotta, when you go home at night, you can't just cut that off. I know it's some stuff that you hear that it hurts you. You feel it. So how do you, as a professional and as a mother and as a Black woman in the community, how do you navigate with work life and your personal life? How do you do that?
Yeah,
I'm sorry to throw that on you. Like,
so Imani and Julian might could throw a twist in there because they watch me, but at the same time, I learned years ago. Actually, my mentor, let me tell you, Dr. Juliet Martin Thomas.
Oh my gosh, I love her.
She's delicious. Shout out Dr. Thomas. She is delicious, and so she was a client of mine at the salon before I went to school to become a therapist, and I was crying about a major thing that another client was going through, crying. And it was horrific. A guy had really harmed his family that I knew. And I was so sad for the family, but I was really sad for him. And I kept crying at night because I said, how is he going to deal with his guilt? And I really wish that he didn't have to think about what he had done to them. And I wanted relief for him. I wanted healing for him. And so I was telling her that I was so worried about myself because I wanted healing for the family in a major way. But I didn't understand why I wanted it for him too. Or those that harm Imani. Just like you mentioned about the family and us protecting our family, especially in the Black community. We protect ours.
Right.
Hispanics naturally have a hard time because they are protectors, like Black women can be. Black folks and Hispanic, we protect family. Native Americans do. Hmong Americans do a lot of protecting. We don't want to call or harm those that have harmed us, right? And so it's cultural. It's in our DNA.
It's our same way we don't snitch on
We
each
don't
other.
snitch.
Yeah,
We don't
that's the same
tell,
thing.
right? And so getting to the place where it's important to tell so you could be well. Period. It's me or that. Sometimes we don't tell and that keeps going on. That's a problem.
Yeah.
And it doesn't always mean tell in the sense of calling
Authorities.
the police or the
Not always. But if it's a crime, listen, my thing is you do the crime, you do the time. Can't go around here harming people and not getting in trouble for it. Not this in the mines. No, I don't agree with that, but I understand it. And I don't push my opinion on my clients. It is their right and their choice. So knowing that you do it and you take the risk of kind of having family be like, because a lot of people have family turn on them once they told or once they said, uncle or auntie or grandma, papa or cousin them did, the entire family shut them down.
Really?
And, that's very common. And so that's painful and hurtful. But at the same time, you don't want to hold the responsibility as if it's you. Thinking about movies and TV, why do y'all think that sexual assault is mentioned so much on TV and in the media? Anything that is played up in Hollywood is life. And I'm telling you that there's a force of good and evil in every movie, right? Because there's our real forces. There are, the superheroes of the world that do the work and they grind anyway. That's real. There are bad police on TV. That's real. There are horrible aunts and uncles and people that we love that have to take the responsibility for what they did. The survivor, the victim, survivor, thriver has to come from up under that as an identifier for them. I don't carry your guilt and shame. I didn't do it. I will wake up from this. I will pull out of this. And this is what it looks like. And for everybody, it's different. It doesn't have to be maybe outing the person if they don't want to. It could be in poetry. It could be in dance. It could be in love yourself, clothing line. It could be in all of that. And that's what it is. But it also shapes you. It's a shaping. And people don't know that part. That you come out of pain. Out of pain breeds these ideas and focuses and jobs and careers. I don't know how I got in this. I always knew I'd be a therapist, but I never thought trauma. I never thought sexual assault therapist. I never thought anything like that. It just kind of came. And when it did, it was just like, oh, nah. I want to help them. I want them to be okay. And what does that look like for me? And so she shared with me, Dr. Juliet, that you're a carrier of emotions. And she said some people are carriers, a lot of people are not. She talked to me about an hour and told me about the complexity of being a carrier and what to do with the emotion. Because at that time I didn't know what to do. I just cried all the time. But it was mostly for other people and what they were going through. And she said you have to learn that the energy that you feel, the emotions that you feel means that you're a carrier. I can feel emotions everywhere I go, all the time, all day. Sometimes I'm not. I called her this morning. I was at my house. And I kept putting it off. And I do that. And I said, and I started out real regular. And I was like, all right, Monty Pooh, that's really not why I'm calling. I'm calling because I feel something. And I, but I also have learned to value me and not put that down and not discourage myself and not let other people who say, not today, Mom. Because some people do be like, here you go.
What your emotions, you mean?
Yep. Or if I get a little curious, like, can I just tell this person that there's hope and healing, or there's resources available, or they don't have to suffer? And some people that I'm with, maybe we out socializing or just with family, is like, here she go. And I'm like, I don't have an excuse for it no more. This is who I be. And that's just what it is. So I've learned. So I skate every Sunday night. Yes, I love to skate. I hang with friends. I've been exercising a lot more than in recent years because it helps my mind. I do what I want to do. That's another thing.
Okay.
I do what I want to do when I want to do it, and that has really helped me. I also raised 2 great, phenomenal children who are grown adults, and they don't live in my home.
So you living a good life. You living a good life.
It's a little different now because then, before I had a responsibility to come home and do. Now I might go after work and hang with friends or do. It's just I have a freedom in it, but I have to find it because when days are heavier, you have to figure out what to do. So I do breathing exercises. I ground. I pray. I love the Lord. He heard my cry, and I listen.
Task to make sure that you're doing these things
Absolutely.
For you, because it's easier to just sit.
Absolutely. It's a balance, and you have to train yourself. And so now I'm at the place
where
in these years where it's not even a balance. It's not even a training. I just
you build kind of routine.
I know tomorrow I need to because tomorrow's Tuesday and it's a heavier day for me. Or by Friday I might be in the salon and that's a kickback. So being in the salon and still owning it, for me, I do hair in my sleep, but at the same time, it's freedom for me. It feels good. So I still engage in the things that help me be me and feel good. And I know how to stop work at checkout time.
So you don't
Help me with that, please.
I learned that.
I learned when you clock out, you clock out.
I clocks out.
What them teachers
No.
did,
And you still call me with it. And sometimes I'll be like, it's Saturday morning, Joe.
Don't talk about it.
You ain't got to do it today.
You know that they're going to be on that. But it's just like,
and I don't mind. I mean, that's where you get through it. And that's another thing. Sometimes you have to talk about it. So the other therapists that I work with are people in the community that do this work, especially violence prevention. Shout out to 414 Life, OVP, all the people out here doing the work. I can't even call out all the organizations that I know that are doing great work, but it's all about violence prevention, and sexual violence is violence. It's violence.
Right.
So we all do this work collectively to try to get through some stuff.
And also, I just thought about the Alma Center too, and that's just want to briefly touch on the fact that the Sojourner does a lot of amazing work with the victims, and then I know the Alma Center does work for people who have caused harm in the community.
Yes,
and that is very, very important work as well. I think we get into this space where we just like I don't even know how to explain it, and I think that is valuable that the work that the work that the Alma Center is doing, because a lot of time that work is forgotten about.
It is, and they specifically work with domestic violence.
Domestic violence.
And so we know that the layering of sexual assault and domestic violence is a high probability that both are happening for somebody. So I don't want people to get that twisted. That's something we have to get out there, because we do specialize in working with. I do specialize in working with sexual assault survivors and domestic abuse survivors, but we know that that's often a layering. I'm probably experiencing both because of the mindset of the abusers, But the Alma Center, phenomenal work as well.
For sure.
So
we have a little less than 10 minutes left. How do we want to utilize the rest of that time? I know you have some resources.
Yeah, I wanted to take this time to give out resources that to our listeners, whether they're here in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, or wherever they are in the United States, to provide some resources that they know that there's somebody, whether it's you or where you work or anywhere, that we have some resources for them to take on.
Yeah, sure.
So we got a list of some resources, about 11 of them. I'll start with some local ones here in Milwaukee. We have the Aurora Health Healing and Advocacy Services, and they have a hotline, a 24-hour crisis hotline that they can call. I'm going to say the number and repeat it. It's 414-219-5555.
Always available, 24 hours a day. It's confidential. We cannot tell your business. We're not interested in telling your business, but if there's a crisis and you need support, that is a number you can call. You can also call that number to find out more resources if you don't get through them all tonight.
So one more time, that 24-hour crisis hotline for Aurora Healing is 414-219-5555. We also have Priceless Insight, the Facebook page you can find at Priceless Insight on Facebook and Instagram. That is also a community resource here in Milwaukee. We have the ASHA Project?
The ASHA Project.
The ASHA Project, capital ASHA. And they have a hotline as well for counseling, family counseling services. Their number is 414-252-0075. Again, for the ASHA Project, counseling services for families, the number is 414-252-0075. 0075. A national hotline for sexual assault, which is also 24 hours, is the National Sexual Assault Hotline. The number is 1-800-656-4673. Again, that's 1-800-656-4673. We have Forge. Forge is a community organization that offers counseling as well. You can go to forward.org, and they have resources online as well. Do you have any more that you would like to highlight that are like
just the national, the national, where am I at? National Sexual Violence Resource Center at www.nsvrc.org. HAWA, Hmong Women's Association, they're doing phenomenal work in the
I've
community.
Heard about them.
They don't only work with Hmong women, they work with lots of folks, transgender people, and resources are here as well. LGBTQ community, also at Forge Diverse and Resilient is also an organization. There's so many, y'all. WCASA, Wisconsin Coalition Against Sexual Assault, National Clearinghouse on Abuse Later in Life, because I do work with a lot of survivors that are elderly, that are home or in nursing homes or living alone, that are also experiencing lots of sexual violence. National Sexual Assault Hotline is a 24-hour crisis hotline, 1-800-656-4673. And that's it. But we have lots of resources. And, of course, if those that are listening want to add more, please do that as well, because we have lots of support available.
And as I was doing my research, I want to highlight 2 additional resources. It's the RAIN org, the Rape, Abuse, and Incest National Network. And I did a little digging around the website. And the website is really, really good. I want to say that because, sexual laws, they vary state to state.
They post them.
The way they post them. So if you say you live in Arizona or California or Texas, you can go to that state and they'll tell you each sexual crime, the penalties, or anything additional stuff that you need to know about pressing charges for that crime. They have it, which is, I feel like that's very useful, because you never know if something happened while you out of town or anything. Those laws may vary, so that it educates you on the laws. Then I also saw it's called the Ojima Community Org. It was launched in 2016. It's the National Center of Violence Against Women in the Black Community. And they serve as a national cultural specific service that provides resources to the Black community, and it educates them in response to domestic, sexual, and community violence. It was founded in response for a need of an active approach to end of that stuff in the Black community. So it's not just for Black people and Black women, Black men, but it's dedicated to us, which I feel like was very important. So, because it's a little different when it comes to sexual violence. It's handled differently than most races. So I think that was good for them to acknowledge that. And then also the National Domestic Hotline, I wanted to say that as well. 1-800-799-SAFE, which is 7233. Again, it's 1-800-799-SAFE, 7233. And you can also chat with them on the website if you're not able to get to a phone.
Absolutely. Thank you.
And we like to open our DMs, obviously, if you guys need to get these resources.
We'll post them for y'all.
We'll post them, but either way, Wolfpack258, our Instagram, our Facebook, our Twitter. DM us if y'all want us to talk about anything specific, have more questions. This is not a conversation that's ending today with this podcast. We want to be here for the community, as we stated in our first episode, and serve y'all and help y'all
in any way we
grow
can.
Together.
Right.
And one last shout out to Concoctions. We had
as y'all can see,
black owned business.
We enjoyed their
very
drinks.
good.
They serve,
I'll be there in a few minutes.
Yes, they serve delicious, one of a kind specialty drinks that can be made with or without liquor at their new bar, and that's over there on 4943 West Fond du Lac Avenue. So y'all go and support a Black owned business. Get you something to eat as well. Some Jamaican food
from Upper Yard.
Yes.
Upper Yard. Yeah. So
we plugging black businesses. Y'all
How about Beauty Master Salon?
Yes.
That was coming next.
Go to the shop. Get y'all hairs there.
Get whipped and big.
Y'all think y'all finna be outside with these?
I'm gonna tell my mama. I've been looking for a stylist for my mama.
I gotta do a personal shout out because Quita, who works in the shop, has been doing my hair since I was
should be
7
listening.
years old. 7 years old, and I've been going to Beauty Masters since longer than I can remember. Like literally, like
I'm gonna have to check you out, Mom.
like nobody else touching my hair unless it's somebody from Beauty Masters.
Absolutely.
Y'all already know how I'm
Yeah.
right.
But,
I will not have a haircut unless Mom's.
He will not.
Y'all already know.
He will not. He will not go anywhere else.
That
People
hey,
never cheat on their barber.
that's it.
They don't.
I don't
Right.
know what I'm gonna do when I'm older.
Environment, they dedicate your relationship.
I'm telling you, my fellas are my loyal. My fellas that I cut, they the most loyal. I got loyal sisters that's been in my chair 30 years. Really, I have. But the fellas, they've been there just as long, holding it down.
But then again, thank you so much, Mom, for
Oh, no
coming.
problem. Thank
we
you for
appreciate
inviting me.
you.
Thank
You
you
have
for
been a
inviting
blessing to me. I feel more educated as an
Good.
ally for survivors
Good.
and people who have been victims. I don't even want to say victims, who are survivors.
Survivors and
Survivors of sexual
Yeah.
violence. I feel like I know how to maneuver in those
Yeah.
conversations, so I appreciate that, and
Delicious.
I'm gonna take that with me for the rest of my life.
Please
so.
do. Please
Thank
As
you.
much as we talk, I mean, you know, let me know about work. And I'll bounce questions off of you if
All
I
the
see
time.
something. Or we talk all the time, but even this conversation today gave me some clarity and
Good.
gave me some more information that I could use and be in support too.
I'm happy. I'm happy that y'all
Love
got
having
something
you on
out
the
of
show
it.
today.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you.
for
Thank
that.
y'all for listening. Like I said, we hope this helped.
And shout out to So Greedy.
Yes.
This is delicious.
Y'all, thanks,
Thank you.
Tom.
Always
Tone
shout out
deaf
to Tom.
Thanks.
Tom.
Keeping us up and running.
Right,
Yeah.
fixing the issues. That's the man right there.
I
But
love it.
We'll see y'all next week.
Yeah.
We'll be back with another episode.
Dorian will be back. We love y'all.
Happy
Be safe.
birthday.
Oh yeah, another happy
Birthday shout out to our boy.
He
Woo!
kicking it.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
having fun. He deserve it.
Yeah. He said anything to us. So
Yeah.
He will
he's having
be
a
back
good
next
time.
week, and we'll see y'all. Love y'all.
Love y'all. We out.
Bye.